One of the biggest crises in this country in generations. One of the biggest threats to our national security in generations. And yet, essentially today, the president offered no new evidence of action. I don't understand why he won't do the single simplest thing that would help us and help this whole country mobilize our armed forces. We need their ability, their logistical ability, their operational ability, their extraordinary personnel, including their extraordinary medical personnel. We need them here. We need them now. It's as simple as that. And the order still has not been given. The same with the Defense Production Act. We have been waiting and waiting. The president said today he would utilize it, but there's no specific evidence of that confirming to us any specific supplies or equipment being built, manufactured, distributed. We have nothing yet to tell us when we're going to get help, and we need it. I continue to appeal to our congressional delegation, which has been very supportive. I'm reaching out to cabinet secretaries. I'm reaching out to the vice president, anyone who will listen. But we need the president's full authority under the Defense Production Act so that it will actually turn into thousands of ventilators, millions of surgical masks, all the things that New York needs. And by the way, I've warned people, in 2 or 3 weeks, at this rate, we're going to run out. But that's the beginning of the crisis. Later in April, into May, it gets worse. So we need the federal government to act. Senator Schumer, to his credit, is playing an extraordinary role. He has offered this Marshall Plan for hospitals. That's exactly what we need to give our healthcare community what they need, the supplies, the equipment, everything they need. But listen, it also, to his great credit, recognizes that states and localities are right now bearing massive new expenses and are stressed in huge ways, and we need the financial relief too so we can help our people. And our people need money back in their pockets, and the federal government can do that. So again, thank you to Senator Schumer for all you are doing. I want to give a number of updates about actions quickly that the city is taking, and then I'll turn to our police commissioner and then our schools chancellor. Let me just say, I mentioned earlier the sheer number of cases. Again, 5,151, an astounding number. 29 people in this city have passed away because of coronavirus. We've lost 29 New Yorkers, and that number is sure to keep growing very, very sadly. In terms of the boroughs, we have 1,406 cases. This, again, as of 10 a.m. this morning, 1,406 cases in Queens, 1,518 cases in Brooklyn, 1,314 cases in Manhattan, 667 cases in the Bronx, and 242 cases in Staten Island. Let me tell you about some of the things we're going to do, and the Chancellor will go into more detail on the question of our enrichment centers. These are the new centers. We've never had them before. This is a brand new thing. And I want to thank everyone at Department of Education, everyone, our educators, our staff, our senior leadership, everyone. These folks have been working nonstop to get this ready. And these are the enrichment centers to provide education and to give a safe place to the kids of our absolutely essential workers, our healthcare workers, our first responders, our transit workers. We know we need all of those workers at the front where they're needed most, and they need to have their kids someplace safe. So they will open up on Monday morning. There'll be 93 to begin, but we could well be adding more. 76 of those will be K-12 education centers. 17 will be early childhood grades only. And these sites can handle well over 50,000 students. It's not going to be anywhere near that number to begin, but it could grow much more as we go along, and we want to be ready for anything. The first group, of course, again, is healthcare workers, first responders, transit workers. I've identified them before. All of them will be able to, once confirmed, of course, will be able to have their kids go to these schools and centers during the school day. For the Department of Education staff who will be working at the centers and the food distribution locations, I'll be talking about those in a moment. Of course, their children as well will have that opportunity. For the frontline investigators and child protective workers in the Administration for Children's Services who protect kids against child abuse, the same. For Department of Corrections, essential staff, the same. For Department of Homeless Services and Human Resources Administration, shelter staff and key contracted staff, the same, and for sanitation essential staff. And that obviously means, in the case of corrections and sanitation, our frontline workers as well. So we will be getting all the details out on the different categories of city workers and other workers who qualify to have this opportunity for their kids. Those categories are not final, meaning we will reserve the right over the next few days into next week to add as we see what's going on, as we hear from additional folks what they need. I mentioned the feeding sites. We're going to be doing a lot of work in these next weeks and months on new ways of feeding New Yorkers. In terms of feeding, in this case, we mean grab-and-go meals. So this is not people sitting down. Of course, we're trying to enforce social distancing in every way we can. So the grab-and-go meals will be for any young person under 18, whether they go to a public school or any other kind of school. 435 sites will be opening on Monday. They will serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A young person can come and get all 3 meals at once or any combination for limited hours in the day, on the early part of the day. Details will all be posted. We've got, this is based on sites that were either part of our summer food program from last summer. About 100 of those sites are being used here. A number of other sites where we see a very high level of kids who during the school year get school meals at a reduced rate or free because of their status economically. We're also going to have a special initiative to get food to the homes of medically fragile students. Those are students who really need particular help. Department of Education is going to have a special plan for them, and we're working with DoorDash, and we want to help them, we want to thank them for their help in making this possible. Everyone who stepped up to make these feeding sites possible, I want to thank all of you. There's a lot of public servants, everyone out there, I just want to say a lot of public servants who know it's a tough situation, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, but they're stepping forward anyway to help their fellow New Yorkers, and I want to commend all of them. Some other quick updates. There have been real questions about the small business grants and loans that we announced over a week ago. Want to make sure we're clear about how that works, and I want us to do a better job of keeping this information straightforward and clear for small business folks who need them going forward. The grants for businesses with 5 or fewer employees who have lost 25% or more of revenue. That application has been online and live since last Tuesday, and we have now 466 applications. They will all be processed by Monday, and money will go into people's bank accounts on Monday. For the businesses with fewer than 100 employees, and those that also lost 25% or more of their revenue, there's a huge demand for those loans. We are not going to be able to meet the full demand immediately. We'll do our best to reach as many as we can. Initially, that's about 400 businesses as well. Those businesses will be able to process their applications tomorrow, beginning tomorrow, and the loan money will be in their bank accounts by the end of this coming week. So that one we're still playing some catch up on, but we should have money in people's hands by the end of this coming week. On our city parks, this is another one that pains me. Again, I'm a parent. I love our parks for my own experiences with them, but also all the time I spent with my kids in our parks. It pains me to tell you we have to cancel all field permits. We cannot allow any events. We cannot allow any team sports. And I'm someone who loves team sports in every form, and I'm very sorry to have to tell you that, but it's just, unfortunately, pretty much all team sports come with people getting in close proximity, and that's how this disease spreads. So we're not going to be able to allow any permits for that. We're going to urge everyone to exercise on their own and socially distance to the best of their abilities. And parents are going to have a tough time with this, and kids are going to have a tough time with this, and it's not going to be perfect. But do the best you can to live in this new reality. Again, is it going to go on forever? No. It will be a certain number of weeks, a certain number of months. We don't know exactly what it will be, but it will not be forever. We know it will be finite. We know this crisis will end. So it's going to be a tough, tough adjustment. but we have to be clear about keeping people safe. There's been real good questions about bike lanes and bike usage. There seems to be a real surge in bike usage. That's fantastic. We want to support that. We're going to begin by installing temporary bike lanes, hopefully by the end of next week. First of all, an area very, very important, 2nd Avenue, Manhattan, between 34th and 42nd Street, a temporary bike lane there. Also on Smith Street in Brooklyn, part of Smith Street that does not have a bike lane. We'll put in a temporary one there. We'll be looking for other areas all over the city that need them. We certainly want to encourage people to use bikes as much as they can at this moment. And we'll have constant updates on that. Now, when it comes to another way that people get around our ferries, we do have, unfortunately, we do have to reduce some of our ferry service because there simply isn't a ridership to, justify the kind of frequency we have now, and we have to be smart about that. Every resource right now has to be used best to fight coronavirus. Every part of the city government has to support every other part. So we will have to reduce frequency because we just see many fewer people. Staten Island Ferry ridership is down 70% compared to the same point last year. We will still have ferry service, but we need people to, of course, be smart about social distancing, and they will have fewer trips, and so we have to be really smart about keeping an eye on that, keeping that balance. It will not be a huge change. We'll be reducing weekday schedules from 4 to 3 boats during rush hours. So you'll still have regular service. It'll just be somewhat less, and that will go into effect this Sunday at midnight. The same for New York City Ferry. NYC Ferry reductions will begin next week. We'll get the exact details. Obviously, we will be careful to protect the times that people need the ferry the most during morning and evening rush hour, but there will be reductions in that service, details to be announced. So, concluding, and then a few words in Spanish. Look, just to say anyone out there is confused, you're not alone. If you feel afraid, you are not alone. If you're anxious, you're not alone. Everyone is. All of us are. All of us are trying to make sense of this. But I'll tell you something, and I really, really believe it. New Yorkers are so strong. There are other places in this country, and I love this whole country, but there are other places in this country this may be a particular shock to the system. But here, New Yorkers have dealt with every single thing ever thrown at them. And we've had a lot thrown at us. We are a tough people by nature, and that's something to be proud of. So everyone, let's depend on that. Let's believe in that. Let's believe in also the compassion in New Yorkers, that ability to help each other out no matter what. We've seen that time and time again. Let's depend on that again. Let's be there for each other. Few words in Spanish. Comenzando este domingo a las 8 de la noche. Solo los negocios esenciales estarán abiertos en la ciudad de Nueva York. Les insistimos a todos, quédense en casa, a menos que tenga que salir por razón esencial, y protejan a los más vulnerables. Los meses que vienen van a ser difíciles, pero vamos a superar esta crisis, como siempre lo hacen los neoyorquinos. With that, I'm going to turn to our police commissioner. I'll just say this. Commissioner Shea and I have been talking over these last days. This is going to be a new reality for the NYPD. There's no force on earth more effective and more capable than the NYPD. There's no group of professionals more agile, more sophisticated than the men and women of the NYPD. But there's an added positive reality here. And Dermot Shea is one of the people who created neighborhood policing from scratch over these last 6 years to really connect our officers more deeply to their neighborhoods, to build personal relationships, to really understand what was going on block by block, to get to know the people who run those grocery